Subscribe to Storylab for more stories. Now, let's begin this one. The desert sun beat down on the tarmac as Lance Sullivan ran through his pre-flight checks. 6 years in the Army's 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment had turned the mechanical routine into muscle memory. His hands moved across the UH-60 Black Hawk's controls with practiced efficiency, while his mind wandered to the video call he'd had with Emma 3 days ago. His daughter had shown him a drawing she'd made, a stick figure family with a helicopter overhead. She'd asked when he was coming home. Soon, baby girl, he'd told her. Real soon. That was before everything fell apart. Lance had met Denise Donaldson at a bar in Fort Campbell 9 years ago. She'd been working as a cocktail waitress, saving money for nursing school, she'd said. He'd been young, 23, fresh off his first deployment. She was beautiful in that dangerous way that should have warned him off, all sharp edges and hollow promises. They married after 3 months. Emma arrived a year later, and for a brief window, Lance thought he'd found something worth protecting beyond his country. The divorce came when Emma was 4. Denise had stopped pretending to want the quiet life of a military wife. She wanted excitement, attention, the thrill of new faces in dark bars. Lance didn't fight for full custody because he was deployed 8 months out of the year. The court awarded Denise primary custody with his visitations scheduled around deployments. He sent money every month, more than the court required, and called Emma whenever satellite connections allowed. Then Denise met Greg Love. Lance had done a background check the first time Emma mentioned Mommy's new friend Greg. It wasn't difficult for someone with his security clearance and contacts. Gregory Allen Love, age 34, had a record that read like a crime novel's table of contents. Assault, DUI, domestic battery, possession with intent to distribute. 2 years in county, 3 years probation, restraining order from an ex-girlfriend named Cassie Dunbar, who'd moved 3 states away. He'd called Denise immediately. "You've got a convicted felon around my daughter. He's changed, Lance. You don't know him like I do. He had a rough past, but everyone deserves a second chance." Second chance? Denise, he beat his last girlfriend so badly she needed reconstructive surgery on her jaw. That was years ago. He's different now. He treats Emma real good. The lies sat heavy between them. Lance heard it in the slight hitch of her voice, the defensive edge that crept in when she knew she was wrong but wouldn't admit it. If anything happens to her, nothing's going to happen. You're just jealous because Emma actually has a father figure around instead of some ghost who sends money and calls once a week. He'd almost told her then about the custody lawyer he'd already contacted, about the paperwork being drawn up. But operational security ran deep in his veins. Never reveal your plan before execution. That was 4 months ago. Now Lance sat in the cockpit somewhere over hostile territory, coordinates classified, mission objectives eyes only. His co-pilot, Henry Butler, was running through weapons checks when the encrypted radio crackled to life. Nighthawk 7, this is Outpost Command. Priority Alpha message. Stand by for secure channel. Lance exchanged a glance with Henry. Priority Alpha meant family emergency. His stomach dropped before the operations officer's voice came through. Chief Warrant Officer Sullivan, abort current mission and RTB immediately. You have a family emergency. Your daughter, Emma Sullivan, age 7, has been hospitalized. Status critical. Medical report indicates she was thrown from a moving vehicle at approximately 50 miles per hour by a male subject identified as Gregory Love, your ex-wife's current domestic partner. The child sustained road rash covering approximately 60% of her body. She's currently in pediatric ICU at County General. Infection risk is critical. We're arranging emergency leave. Acknowledge receipt. The helicopter tilted. Lance's hand had jerked on the cyclic before he forced himself to steady. Years of training overrode the primal scream building in his chest. Outpost Command, message received. Requesting immediate RTB and emergency leave status. Negative on immediate RTB, Nighthawk 7. Mission is time critical. You're 23 minutes from target zone. Orders are to complete mission, then RTB. Emergency leave approved upon landing. Henry's voice cut in on the internal calm. Fuck that, Lance. I can land this bird. You got the green light from me. Butler, we have orders. And I have a 7-year-old daughter who thinks her daddy hung the moon. And if she was lying in a hospital right now, I'd want my co-pilot to tell command to shove their orders up their ass. Henry's hands were already moving to take control. I'll tell them we had a hydraulic warning light. You were never here. Flight logs will back it up. You've got 48 hours before anyone asks questions you can't answer. Lance looked at the mission clock. 23 minutes to target, 40 minutes engagement time, 90 minutes back to base. That was 2 hours and 33 minutes while Emma lay in a hospital bed, her small body covered in bandages, fighting infection. 2 hours and 33 minutes while Greg Love walked around breathing. You sure about this? Henry was already adjusting their heading. Brother, I've been sure about nothing else in my life. Get your gear. We're 3 minutes from the emergency LZ. There's a medevac bird waiting there. They can get you to the nearest airbase in 20 minutes. I've already radioed ahead. The flight logs will show routine hydraulic diagnostics. Grounded the bird for 6 hours for maintenance. Then completed mission solo. Happens all the time. This could end your career. Then we better make sure nobody finds out. Henry's grin was wolfish. Besides, what are they going to do? Send me to Afghanistan? Go get your little girl, Lance. And that piece of shit who hurt her? You make him understand what happens when you touch a warrior's family. The helicopter descended toward the emergency landing zone. Lance was already planning. His sidearm was locked in the arms room back at base, but he knew a guy in supply who owed him a favor. Commercial flights from the airbase to Fort Campbell were twice daily. He could be in his hometown of Millerton, Tennessee, by evening. Greg Love had thrown his daughter from a moving car like she was garbage. The rage that settled over Lance wasn't hot. It was cold, precise, the same calm that came over him when he was lining up a shot on a hostile target. This wasn't vengeance. This was mission execution. The helicopter touched down. Lance grabbed his pack and looked back at Henry. I owe you. You owe me nothing. But Sullivan. Henry's expression hardened. Whatever you're planning, make it count. That little girl deserves justice, and I don't mean the kind that comes from a courtroom. Lance jumped from the helicopter and ran toward the waiting medevac, the rotors kicking up dust that stung his eyes. Or maybe that was something else. He thought about Emma's drawing, the stick figure family with the helicopter overhead. She'd drawn him protecting them from above, watching over them. He'd failed, but failure wasn't final. It was just intel for the next operation. And this operation had only one acceptable outcome. The flight from the airbase took 4 hours with a connection through Atlanta. Lance sat in the window seat, watching clouds pass below, his mind running through tactical scenarios. A staff sergeant, too, rose up, recognized him, started to say something, then saw his expression and looked away. His phone had 63 messages when he turned it back on after landing. Most were from his sister, Shirley Douglas. She'd married young, divorced younger, and moved back to Millerton to raise her 2 kids with the help of their parents. She was the one who'd called the base, who'd fought through military bureaucracy to get word to him. The most recent message was an hour old. Emma's stable. Still critical. They have her sedated. Denise is here. She's a mess. Greg is in the wind. Cops are looking for him, but you know how that goes. Call me when you land. He didn't call. He texted, landed, on my way to hospital. Shirley's response was immediate. I'll meet you there. Don't do anything stupid. Lance almost laughed. Too late for that. County General was a squat concrete building on the edge of town, expanded haphazardly over decades until it resembled a child's Lego creation. Lance parked his rental car and walked through the emergency entrance, his boots clicking on linoleum that had seen better decades. Shirley intercepted him at the elevator. She'd aged in the 2 years since he'd seen her last. More gray in her dark hair, deeper lines around her eyes. She grabbed him in a hug that he barely returned, his body rigid with the effort of staying in control. 4th floor, pediatric ICU. They'll only let family in, and only 2 at a time. Denise is in there now with her mother. Where is she? Shirley knew what he meant. They don't know. Neighbors saw them arguing at the house around 2 p.m. Emma came home from school and apparently said something that set Greg off. Denise tried to intervene. He backhanded her, threw Emma in his truck, and took off. Witness saw him driving erratic on Highway 41, saw something fly out of the passenger side, going at least 50. Truck kept going. Lance's hands clenched. He threw her out, like trash, while the truck was moving. State police found the truck abandoned at a rest stop 40 miles south. No sign of Greg. They have an APB out, FBI's involved because he crossed state lines. But Lance. Shirley grabbed his arm. They're looking for him to arrest him. Whatever you're thinking. I'm thinking I need to see my daughter. The elevator dinged. Lance stepped in before Shirley could say more. The pediatric ICU smelled like antiseptic and fear. A nurse at the station looked up as Lance approached, her expression shifting from professional courtesy to recognition. Small towns remembered their own, especially the ones who left and made something of themselves. Emma Sullivan, he said. I'm her father. Room 404. Chief Warrant Officer Sullivan, right? We've been expecting you. Her voice softened. She's stable. That's the important thing. The doctors can explain everything, but she's going to make it. Going to make it. As if survival was victory. As if his 7-year-old daughter, being covered in bandages, fighting infection from being thrown from a moving vehicle, was acceptable as long as her heart kept beating. He walked to room 404. Through the window, he could see Emma's small form in the hospital bed, dwarfed by machines and tubes. Denise sat in a chair beside the bed, her face in her hands. An older woman, Denise's mother, Marilyn Pratt, stood behind her, one hand on her daughter's shoulder. Lance pushed open the door. Denise looked up. Her face was a wreck, one eye swollen shut, lips split, bruises darkening her cheek. She'd taken a beating before Emma had. The makeup she tried to apply to cover it had smeared with tears. Lance. Her voice broke on his name. He didn't look at her. He walked to Emma's bedside and felt his knees nearly give out. His daughter's face was one of the few areas not covered in bandages. Her eyes were closed, peaceful in sedation. The bandages covered her arms, her legs, her torso. The doctor's report had said 60% coverage. Looking at her now, it seemed like more. The doctor said she'll heal, Marilyn said quietly. The infection is the biggest risk right now, but they're pumping her full of antibiotics. She woke up once, asked for you. Lance touched Emma's hand where it lay outside the bandages, her small fingers still. What did he do? Lance at Denise started. What did he do? Marilyn answered when Denise couldn't. According to Emma, before she passed out in the ambulance, she told Greg she didn't like how he yelled at her mama. Said her real daddy never yelled. Greg grabbed her, threw her in the truck, told her he'd show her what a real daddy does. Denise tried to stop him. He hit her. Drove off with Emma. Witness statements say he was swerving, driving erratic. Emma probably said something else that set him off. He opened the passenger door and pushed her out. At 50 miles an hour, Lance's vision tunneled. The rage was a living thing now, coiled in his chest like razor wire. Where is he? Nobody knows, Marilyn said. Police think he's headed for Mexico. He's got a cousin in Laredo who, I don't care what the police think. Lance looked at Denise for the first time. You brought him into her life. You let a man with a record for violence around our daughter. You did this. I didn't know he would. Yes, you did. The words came out flat, factual. You knew exactly what he was. I told you what he was. You chose him anyway. You chose the excitement, the danger, whatever the hell he gave you that was worth more than Emma's safety. Tears streamed down Denise's face. I'm sorry. God, Lance, I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this. Sorry doesn't give her back the skin she lost being dragged across asphalt. Sorry doesn't erase the nightmare she's going to have for the rest of her life. He leaned down, kissed Emma's forehead gently. But I'm going to fix it. My way. He turned and walked out before Denise could respond, before the machines monitoring Emma's vitals could make him stay, before the civilized part of him that believed in laws and courts could talk him out of what came next. Shirley was waiting in the hallway. What are you going to do? What I do best, Lance said. Hunt. The house Lance grew up and sat on 3 acres outside Millerton proper, a ranch-style building his father had built with his own hands over 2 summers. Bill Sullivan had been a Marine, 2 tours in Vietnam, and he'd raised his children to understand duty, honor, and the precise application of violence when necessary. He was 70 now, his hair white, his hands gnarled with arthritis. But his eyes were still sharp when he opened the door and saw his son standing there. "Heard you were back in town." "Heard why?" Bill stepped aside. "Come in." The living room hadn't changed in 20 years. Same furniture, same photographs on the wall, Bill in his dress blues, Lance in his flight suit, Shirley with her kids. A life documented in still frames. "How's Emma?" "Alive. Stable. That's the best I can ask for right now." Lance sat on the couch where he'd spent countless nights as a teenager, cleaning weapons with his father, learning the discipline that would later save his life in combat. Bill disappeared into the back room and returned with a bottle of whiskey and 2 glasses. He poured 3 fingers in each, handed one to Lance. "To Emma's recovery." They drank. "Now tell me what you're really here for." Lance met his father's eyes. "Greg Love threw my daughter out of a moving truck. The cops are looking for him. FBI's involved. But you and I both know how this goes. Even if they catch him, he'll get what? 10 years? 15 with good behavior? Out in 7. Probably less. System soft on everything except drug charges." Bill refilled both glasses. "You're thinking about stepping outside the system." "I'm not thinking about it. You know what that means. You get caught, you lose everything. Your career, your pension, your freedom. Emma needs her daddy, not a daddy in prison. Emma needed her daddy to keep her safe. I failed. The whiskey burned going down. I'm not failing again." Bill was quiet for a long time. Then he stood, walked to the closet, and pulled out a lockbox. He opened it with a key he wore on a chain around his neck. Inside were 3 handguns, a Glock 19, a .45 1911, and a snub-nosed .38 revolver. "The Glocks registered to me. The 1911's registered to your Uncle Morris, who died 3 years ago and whose estate was never properly inventoried. The .38 isn't registered to anyone." Bill lifted out the .38, checked the cylinder, then set it on the table along with a box of ammunition. "You didn't get this from me. In fact, we didn't have this conversation. I haven't seen you since Emma was 5. Lance looked at the weapon, then at his father. "You could get in trouble. Son, I'm 70 years old with a bad heart and worse knees. What are they going to do to me that time isn't already handling?" Bill's expression hardened. "But that man hurt my granddaughter. He threw her away like she was nothing. There's a reckoning owed, and the law ain't going to deliver it. So you do what you need to do. Just be smart about it." Lance picked up the .38, felt its weight. Compact, concealable, reliable. No serial number meant no ballistics tracking. He's probably running for the border. Men like Greg Love don't run. They hide close where they feel safe. Bill pulled out his phone, scrolled through contacts, and made a call. "Gustavo? Bill Sullivan. I need information on a man named Greg Love." "Yeah, that piece of shit. Where's he likely to hole up?" Bill's friend Gustavo Andrews ran a bail bonds company and had connections throughout the local criminal ecosystem. The conversation lasted 5 minutes. When Bill hung up, he had an address. "Greg's got a brother, Patrick Love. Lives in a trailer park off Route 9, the Shady Pines mobile home community. Gustavo says Patrick's a small-time meth cook, been arrested twice but never convicted. If Greg's still in the area, that's where he'd go." Lance stood, pocketed the .38 and ammunition. "Thank you. Don't thank me. Just make it clean. And son," Bill grabbed his arm, "remember what I taught you. The difference between murder and justice is intent. You go in angry, you make mistakes. You go in cold, you make it right." "Yes, sir." Lance walked out into the Tennessee night, the weight of the gun a familiar comfort against his ribs. The sky was clear, stars bright in the absence of city lights. He thought about Emma, about the drawing she'd made. The stick figure family with the helicopter overhead. He was going to make sure she never had to draw another picture where Daddy wasn't there to protect her. The hunt had begun. The Shady Pines mobile home community was exactly as depressing as its name suggested. 30-odd trailers scattered across a muddy lot, most showing the wear of years and neglect. Lance parked his rental 3 streets over at a closed gas station and walked in, staying to shadows. Patrick Love's trailer was number 23, a rusted double-wide with a sagging porch and windows covered in aluminum foil. The kind of place where questions weren't asked and visitors weren't welcome. Lance circled the property once, noting exits and approaches. One way in, one way out. A pickup truck that matched Greg's description was parked behind the trailer, covered with a tarp. Amateur hour. He waited in the darkness for 2 hours, watching. Lights were on inside. Shadows moved past windows. At least 2 people, maybe 3. At midnight, the trailer door opened. A man stepped out, thin, jittery, with a hollowed-out look of a habitual meth user. Patrick Love, based on a mugshot Lance had pulled up on his phone. He lit a cigarette, looked around nervously, then went back inside. Lance moved closer. The trailer's walls were thin. He could hear voices inside. Can't stay here forever, man. Cops are looking for you. I know. Just need to lay low a few more days, then I'm gone. Mexico, like we talked about. Greg's voice. Lance would have recognized it anywhere from the one time they'd met, when he'd come to pick up Emma and found Greg on Denise's couch, proprietary and smug. You really threw that kid out of the truck? Bitch wouldn't shut up, going on about her real daddy this and real daddy that. I snapped, okay? Didn't mean for it to go like that, but what's done is done. Didn't mean for it to go like that. Lance's hand found the .38. What if she dies, Greg? That's murder. They'll give you life. She ain't gonna die. Kids are tough. Probably milking it for attention anyway, just like her mama. Lance had heard enough. He could kick in a door, could go in loud and violent, and put bullets in both of them before either one reacted. It would be easy, satisfying. But his father's words echoed. Be smart about it. He needed Greg alive. Just long enough. Lance circled back to his rental, retrieved a length of rope from the trunk, always kept emergency supplies, basic survival training, and returned to the trailer. He cut the power line with his multi-tool, plunging the inside into darkness. Shot from inside. The door banged open. Patrick stumbled out, cursing, fumbling with a flashlight. Lance hit him once, precise strike to the temple. Patrick dropped like a puppet with cut strings. Greg came out 30 seconds later, hand on a pistol tucked in his waistband. Patrick? What the hell? Gregory Love. Greg spun, gun coming up. Lance was faster. The .38 cracked once, bullet punching through Greg's gun hand. The pistol clattered to the mud. Greg screamed, clutching his shattered hand. You remember me? Lance stepped into the light spilling from the trailer's open door. Emma's father. The one you said wasn't around enough. The soldier boy you mocked. Recognition flared in Greg's eyes, followed by animal fear. Look, man, I didn't. It was an accident, I swear. You threw my 7-year-old daughter out of a truck going 50 miles an hour. You looked at her, decided she was garbage, and threw her away. Lance's voice was calm, conversational. I'm here to return the favor. Greg, try to run. Lance shot him in the leg, same cold precision. Greg went down screaming. Help! Somebody help me. Scream all you want. Nobody in this park calls the cops. You know that. Lance dragged Greg to the truck, the same one he'd used to hurt Emma. He'd already hot-wired it during his surveillance. He threw Greg in the passenger seat, zip-tied his good hand to the door handle. What are you doing? Where are you taking me? Highway 41. Same road where you threw Emma out. I figure what's fair is fair. The drive took 20 minutes. Greg alternated between begging and threatening, promising he'd keep quiet if Lance let him go, swearing he'd hunt down Emma and finish the job if Lance didn't. Lance said nothing, just drove. Highway 41 was empty at this hour, a straight stretch of asphalt cutting through dark farmland. Lance had scouted it earlier. No cameras, no houses, just empty road. He stopped the truck at the exact spot where witnesses had seen Emma thrown out. He'd measured it using the police report coordinates. Please, Greg whimpered. Please don't do this. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry about Emma. I'll turn myself in. I'll confess. I'll do whatever. You're sorry you got caught. Sorry you're going to face consequences. Lance reached across, opened the passenger door. The night air rushed in. You wanted to show Emma what a real daddy does. Let me show you what happens when you hurt a real daddy's daughter. We're not moving. You can't. The truck's not. Lance smiled. It was not a kind smile. He reached into his pack, pulled out a taser he'd borrowed from his father's collection. One shock to Greg's neck, and the man convulsed, his body jerking. Then Lance put the truck in neutral, got out, and walked to the back. He'd rigged a brick to the accelerator earlier, tied to a string. One pull, and the truck lurched forward, rapidly gaining speed. Lance watched it go, watched Greg's silhouette thrashing in the passenger seat, watched the door swing open. At 47 miles per hour, close enough to 50, Greg Love tumbled out onto the asphalt. The truck continued another 100 yards before veering off into a ditch. Lance walked to where Greg lay. The man was alive, barely. The road rash covered him from shoulder to hip, his clothes shredded, skin torn. He made wet, gasping sounds. "How's it feel?" Lance knelt beside him. "That's what you did to Emma. Except she's 7 years old and weighs 50 pounds. And you're a grown man who should have known better." Greg tried to speak. Blood bubbled from his lips. "Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to call 911 in exactly 10 minutes. Tell them there was an accident. Someone fell out of a truck. They'll find you. They'll save you if they can. But you're going to spend months in a hospital, just like Emma. You're going to know pain every single day. And when you finally recover enough to stand trial, you're going to confess to everything. Child abuse, reckless endangerment, attempted murder. All of it." Lance leaned closer. "Because if you try to fight it or claim innocence or blame Denise or anyone else, I will come back. And next time, I won't call 911. Next time, I'll make sure you understand the difference between mercy and justice. Do you understand me?" Greg managed a nod. "Good." Lance walked back to his rental, parked a quarter-mile away. He waited exactly 10 minutes, then called 911 from a burner phone, reported an accident, gave the location, and hung up. He was 20 miles away when he heard the sirens. By dawn, he was in the hospital cafeteria, drinking burned coffee and waiting for visiting hours to start. Shirley found him there. They found Greg Love on Highway 41 last night. Looks like he fell out of a truck. He's alive, barely. In surgery now. That's so. Lance sipped his coffee. Shirley studied him. The cops are calling it suspicious. Too similar to what happened to Emma. They think maybe someone took justice into their own hands. Terrible thing. Guy probably deserved it. "Lance, I've been here all night, Shirley. Nurses can confirm it. I arrived at 8 p.m., stayed in Emma's room until midnight, then came down here. Never left the hospital." He met her eyes. That's the truth. And it was. Henry Butler had landed the helicopter, had backdated the flight logs, had created an alibi that showed Lance arriving at County General a full 4 hours before he actually had. The rental car was in Shirley's name, rented by her, returned by her. The .38 would be in a river by now, courtesy of Bill Sullivan. A warrior takes care of his own. Shirley sat down across from him. "The police want to talk to you. They know you have motive, and I'll cooperate fully. Tell them everything I know about Greg Love's history, his violence, his threats. I'll be the concerned father who trusted the system to handle it." Lance crushed his coffee cup. "But between you and me, sis, if someone did throw that bastard out of truck, I hope they sleep well at night. I know I will." Shirley was quiet for a moment. Then she reached across the table, squeezed his hand. "Emma asked for you when she woke up this morning. She's lucid talking. The doctors say she's going to be okay." Lance stood. "Then that's where I need to be." He walked to the elevator, to the 4th floor, to room 404, where his daughter lay bandaged but alive. When he opened the door, Emma's eyes found him immediately. "Daddy." It was the most beautiful word he'd ever heard. He sat beside her bed, held her small hand gently. "I'm here, baby girl. Daddy's here, and I promise you, nothing like this will ever happen again. Greg was mean. He hurt Mommy, and then he hurt me. I know, but Greg can't hurt you anymore. He's gone. Forever." Lance thought about Greg Love, lying in a hospital bed in the same building, covered in bandages, facing decades in prison once he recovered enough to stand trial. If he recovered. Forever, Lance confirmed. Emma smiled, then drifted back to sleep. Lance stayed there, holding her hand, until the sun rose fully and painted the hospital room in gold light. He'd broken laws. He'd crossed lines. He'd done things that would horrify civilians and satisfy soldiers. But his daughter was alive, and her monster was gone. That was all the justice he needed. 3 days later, Greg Love confessed to everything from his hospital bed, his lawyer looking on helplessly as he detailed every moment of what he'd done to Emma. The prosecutor called it the easiest case she'd ever had. Lance returned to duty 2 weeks later, his emergency leave approved and extended by a sympathetic chain of command. Emma was healing well. The doctor's optimistic about minimal scarring. Denise had signed over full custody without a fight, recognizing what everyone else already knew. She'd failed as a mother, and Lance was Emma's only real parent. On his last night before deploying again, Lance took Emma to the park. She moved slowly, still healing, but she moved. She laughed. She lived. "Daddy, will you always protect me?" Lance knelt beside her, looked into eyes that held his whole world. "Always, baby girl. Always." And high above them, a helicopter crossed the sky, rotors beating against the wind. Watching, protecting, just like her drawing. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.